What's up guys, it's ALLDAYANTHONY and welcome back to the RSX vlog that you hopefully know and continue to love, because in today's video we're adjusting valves and installing a genuine Type R valve cover. Let's go. Alright guys, so today's video is an exciting one and hopefully a video packed full of useful information, because we are collaborating with Larry Miller Honda in Boise on how to do a proper valve adjustment on a K-Series motor. Now Larry Miller graciously allowed me to come down and film the entire process with Cody, who is their trained Honda master technician. Now Cody's one of the best in town for anything Honda related, and he's also a complete wizard when it comes to racing suspension, which will come in handy down the road for the RSX. So we're going to be heading down to Larry Miller Honda for the full process, and I'm really excited to learn from somebody that knows what they're doing. For some reason, the entire thing with adjusting valves and feeler gauges is something that I can't quite grasp until I see it in person. Now on top of that, we're also going to be installing a genuine Honda Type R valve cover that is minty fresh, straight from Japan. I'm extremely excited. I cannot wait to see the final result once it's all done and how good the car is going to run after. So with that said, we have places to be and people to see, so I'll see you guys there. Alright, so we've just arrived at the service bay at Larry Miller Honda. We have the Acura RSX sitting pretty in the bay. So I'm going to go over and introduce you guys to Cody, who is the Honda master technician, and we're going to jump into this. Cody, what's going on, dude?
How's it going?
Good to see you. So you're the pro around here.
I worked here for about 15 years.
Okay.
Hondas professionally. Grew up in the business.
Did you always used to be into Hondas, or were you into other things? Do you like drift cars? Do you like, what do you like?
Before this, I built an RB26 for an S14, and now I don't have a project, so
not yet.
Your project will be my project right now.
Valve clearance check, possible valve adjustment if it's needed, right? Is it always needed, or it just kind of depends?
A lot of it just depends on wear and tear and how often it's been done in the past. Okay. Typically, I always will do it and set it to my spec, how I like the feel of the valve clearance adjustment. So I typically will adjust it no matter what, and I adjust it to the feel that I feel is appropriate.
Sweet. Okay, so we'll try to relay that message the best we can, right, in the video. I just know that I am not a feeler gauge guy. I've tried to do feeler gauge stuff in the past, and it just, I don't have that special touch. I don't know what it is. So that's why we're all here, to hopefully learn how it's done and learn a few tricks from you.
Valve clearance adjustment or inspection is every 100,000 miles.
Okay.
If there's attention needed for an oil leak from the valve cover, typically we'll still go in and double check.
I think I got a little seep from there, so we'll check that out.
It's always a good idea if you're there. You might as well make the best of the time and do a clearance check, and if it needs adjustment, do an adjustment.
Sweet, man. I'm excited. So new spark plugs are going in as well. So we got those coming from the inside over in the parts department. They're going to bring that along with a valve cover seal. And then I do have a minty, new, fresh Type R valve cover over there that we're going to be installing, which actually already has the spark plug gaskets already in it. So that's a positive there. And yeah, so let's go ahead and pop the hood and dive into it.
Okay, a couple things being a Honda technician, and we've had some clearance issues. And when you buy this generic valve clearance tool, at some point around, I think 2010 Odysseys roughly, this tool came with this huge screwdriver handle.
Okay.
And we put a stubby one on. I don't know how this started, but it's called the green screwdriver.
Okay.
Every mechanic has to have a green screwdriver. It doesn't matter what brand it is, it somehow started. And this is something I pass on to all my apprentices. It's the green screwdriver.
Okay.
It has to be a green screwdriver.
Has to be. Doesn't matter what brand, just
doesn't
as long
matter.
as it's green.
Yep. And it's your go-to.
All right. Note to self, Anthony, buy green screwdriver.
Okay, we're gonna pull the valve cover, all the covers off real quick.
Okay.
And we're just gonna start with some 10s. Make sure that's all the way off.
I'm debating whether or not I want to continue running that or not, but we'll figure that out down the road. It depends on how pretty, you know, the new Type R valve cover is, and then down the road too as well, I'll be upgrading the fuel rail and getting something fancy in there.
We're just gonna try and clear up as much space as possible.
Okay. Oh, I'm disappointed in myself. Is there like a parts cleaner around here or something like that?
There is.
All right.
We're gonna put this thing in the wash when we're finished.
That's a nice clean valve cover to take home. Yeah.
So a little bit of time in the parts washer loosens things up real nice.
All right, so the plugs are out, and then from here, we're gonna be lifting out the final plug. Spark plugs are obviously from there in the hole, and then throttle cable, we'll probably move that out of the way. Most people reroute them. I'll probably eventually reroute it, but in the meantime, before the engine bay gets too fancy, we'll just roll with it for right now.
Let's kind of lay them out of the way.
Okay.
Because you just don't want to pinch it up too hard.
So let it lay naturally.
Yeah, let it lay naturally and just move it out of the way.
Okay.
Try not to be too forceful with stuff here.
All right, so Cody right now is filling up some brake clean just to clean off all this gunk down in here. He basically said that if you don't clean that off, then there's a pretty good chance that a lot of that's going to fall into the motor itself once the valve cover is lifted, especially if it hasn't been lifted for quite some time. All right, so brake clean going on. Oh, dude, that clears that off. That clears it off real fast.
Really fast, and it evaporates, so there's not a bunch of residue. So we just don't want anything falling down. This little hose here, I just usually will kind of try and tuck it over, so it's not going to want to stay there right now, just so when we pull it out. And then you always want to keep an eye on this. People break this pulling the valve cover off very often, so you have to be very careful. Yeah, I've had a lot of them broke on all the Hondas. Pull the valve cover back.
Those 8s or 10s?
These are all 10s.
Okay.
And these grommets can be a little picky coming off.
Okay.
And I usually just
flathead or
I'll use like the assistance of either a pick or a pocket screwdriver.
Okay.
Find which one.
How often do you do the multiple drawer check? Every day?
With an apprentice, every day.
Every day? Okay. All right.
Stuff ends up in a new drawer almost every day. Also, I have a lot of guys that borrow tools.
Okay.
And I've got like the hub of the shop where if you need a tool, I am likely to have it. So I'm just pulling the grommets off. Okay. You just don't want these to fall off. They do not come with the valve cover gasket unless you get a full gasket grommet set.
Gotcha. Okay. Green screwdriver.
And I'm just going to kind of pry. And then sometimes just give the valve cover a little bit of a rock.
Okay.
And these the tube seals sometimes will get very stuck. So we're going to be very careful of the valve. And we're just going to come straight up. So right now we're looking at the cam lobes, just making sure that there's no pitting. And usually these will create a bunch of pitting if the rockers start just rattling a lot. Okay. But this cam looks really, really good, and it's typically the exhaust cam.
Okay.
So it's looking really good.
Oh yeah.
Let's go put some parts in the cabinet. So what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna pull the spark plugs out, and the engine has to actually be under 100 degrees.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pull spark plugs out so we get airflow through the cylinders.
All right.
And we're gonna put a fan on, let it cool down, and we'll set to TDC and come back when it's cooled down. During heat expansion, valve clearance will increase.
Okay.
So if the valve clearance has increased too much, we're not gonna actually set our valve clearance to the proper specification.
Okay,
so
all right. I would not have known that. All right,
it's very likely that if we did adjust the valves when it was hot, that when we would go to start it up, if the car was cold, we'd probably have cold start misfires. Ooh, got the model lights in there.
So are they worse than what's going in?
These are bad.
These are bad? Okay.
It's auto lights.
All right.
Honestly, when it comes to spark plug issues, I've seen auto lights and motorcraft spark plugs in a Honda, and they usually always cause issues.
There is a lot of gap there.
So
holy crap, dude.
So I think you're gonna probably have a little bit better drivability.
Dude, I think so, man. I'm pumped. He didn't even have to show these up to me close. I mean, I could tell that the gap is super wonky on these. So is what it is, man. Used vehicles, you never know. All right, guys, so we took a little bit of a break here, just kind of, shot the shit for a little bit, and while the engine cooled to get the temps under 100 degrees, and so you're checking everything out, and we're at what? Max of?
Max of looks like 96 degrees.
Ticket here, the key is to pull out the spark plugs, because that's how you're gonna get the temp down the fastest.
If you have spark plugs in and everything, it'll probably take at least an hour, if not probably an hour and a half.
Okay, cool. All right, so we are ready to jump into, I guess, the adjustments or just the checking of everything. And so I'm gonna let Cody take charge and we're gonna go into it.
Yep, we're just gonna grab some tools here.
Okay.
Through the inner fender well, we have an opening. Your 19mm socket will slide right through this, or you could pull it off.
Okay.
And then I could just set my ratchet on there, and I could rotate the engine just like so.
Okay.
So usually I'm not really necessarily going to pay attention of the timing mark on the crank at this point. On the cam, on both cams, there's going to be some alignment indicators. So I'm just going to rotate this around, and this is a good time also as you're rotating it just to kind of take a look at your other cam lobes and the follower lobes. Make sure everything is clear. And this arrow right here, not sure if you can see it. This is gonna face up.
Oh yeah, I see it now. Okay, you're good.
And so I'm gonna keep turning. A hash mark here, and then there's a hash mark lower on this. And those two hash marks are gonna point at each other on TDC.
Okay.
Right about there. But it's right below my finger.
Yep, I can see it, yep. So it's just a little notch is all it is.
Yep, it's just a little notch. They're gonna point at each other. And then once we get it to TDC, every cylinder we're going to check afterwards will just be essentially moving that cam 90 degrees.
Okay.
And the firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2.
Okay.
So we're going to start on number 1.
Okay.
Turn the cam 90 degrees. So we're going to do 3, 90 degrees, go 4, another 90, and then we'll do, then 2.
Okay.
So
sweet, dude.
got some tools. So it's a 9/1000 feeler gauge.
Okay.
We're just gonna try and get the feeler gauge in here. And so we have, it fits in there, but it's a little loose.
Okay.
As far as my standards go, this would be on the loose side.
Okay.
So I'm gonna end up adjusting this rocker.
Okay.
So I'm gonna check that other one real fast. At this point, just to make my life a little easier, I'm gonna grab my tool. I'm just gonna break these loose. Also, you wanna make sure there's a little jam nut in there. You wanna make sure that it moves freely.
Oh, gotcha, okay. So that's a flat head on the top of that, right?
Yep, it's gonna go down into that jam nut.
Okay, so basically it's a tool that goes over the top of the nut itself, and then you have a flat head, which is going to loosen the nut. Okay, cool.
Okay. And if you've ever used a micrometer, my best description here is you're just gonna feel this set screw go down, and then you're gonna feel it contact the feeler gauge. We don't want it to be forceful against the feeler gauge. We just want it to contact it.
Okay.
And this should be a slight resistance, but you shouldn't have to force it out.
Gotcha.
So a little bit of drag.
Got it. Okay. So basically, depending on which angle that you kind of pull it up, you can feel it catch.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that a novice technician will have to get used to, is you always have to like stabilize your hand and then feel in that plane. You have to move real smooth in that plane. And if you break that plane, then all of a sudden it's going to bind against the top of the valve or the adjuster. So that's where I would adjust that.
Okay.
And this honestly takes most people at least 2 to sometimes 3 years of experience to really get the feeling.
Okay. So I saw you loosen it, then crank it back down.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Very similar to the other one. But yeah, it depends, because if you don't go perfectly horizontal, then you can feel, you know, you're like, could be too tight, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The exhaust is a little trickier on these. I have to go beside the rocker and then slide sideways.
Gotcha.
This one feels really loose.
Like I literally saw that nut move.
Yeah.
Slid it in.
Yeah,
there.
so I could, just as a reference here, so this one is quite loose. So let me get my feeler gauge out of there. We're going to check the other one. The other one is tight. I cannot get my feeler gauge in it. The key here is just patience.
So you're locking it in and you're turning left, or you turn right?
I'm going to go counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise, okay.
Said you kind of got to go beside it and then under the rocker. So essentially right here, I'm just going to have to set that down.
Okay, and you're going to leave it in there while you make the adjustment.
Yeah. And like I said, you're just going to kind of use the tool kind of like a micrometer. You're just going to turn it till you feel it contact and then stabilize it. Now I could come and I could check how much resistance I have.
So that was which size feeler gauge was that?
So this is 11 thousandths.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just gonna grab a smaller straight one.
Okay.
This might be a little easier to see with this one.
Yep.
Okay. The science behind it is, as a valve will wear into the cylinder head, and this takes time, 100,000 miles. As the valve is being pushed up and down, it continuously is going to beat the valve seat in, okay. So then that's going to make that clearance of the valve closer to the rocker.
Yep, I can see it. Perfect. Yeah, look like the perfect amount of drag.
Yeah, and then just double check that you actually tighten that jam nut, because you don't want to start the car and the valve come loose. So I'll typically just do just a snug check and avoid forgetting it.
Yeah.
So now we're going to turn the crank, and we're going to allow this cam to rotate 90 degrees.
I'm going to kind of get it. There you go.
I'm going to rotate that to 3 o'clock there.
There we go, got it.
Another good indicator is these lobes typically will always point towards each other.
Gotcha. Okay, and that's on,
this
there we go, on cylinder 3.
Cylinder 3. So now we're just going to continue the process on 1. Now we did 1, and now we're on 3, and we'll do 4 and 2. So we're just going to continue this, and we'll be back here shortly.
All right, so he's wrapped up with cylinder 3. So now you're cranking it into what new position?
So we're gonna go 90 degrees, and so the arrow's gonna be facing downward.
See that right there.
We're gonna be on cylinder 4 now. Like that's
pretty loose.
It's really loose.
It's a good thing, right, Cody? That's what we want, right?
That's your cold start rattles, right?
Dude,
right there.
That is a cold start rattle right there.
That one as well. That one's, you can see the feeler gauge rocking.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's very loose.
So intake first always, and then exhaust on every single one.
On every single one. Also, cylinder 3, the exhaust valves were very tight. I tried.
Dude, you said they were like really tight.
Really tight. I forced the feeler gauge in there just for a reference for it, and it was exceptionally tight.
So everybody, so if you're doing this job, you probably should have that tool then.
Yeah,
realistically.
This is your go-to. I've seen guys do it with a box wrench and a stubby screwdriver, but you will be there for a while because it is hard to get the spec.
Okay, and again, the same feeler, we're using the same feeler gauge that you said 11.
This one's a 9,000. Up on the label here, you could find your valve lash adjustment, and it says valve lash cold.
Okay.
And it's in metric.
Yeah.
But you got 0.23 on the intake and 0.27 on the exhaust.
Okay.
So, me being American, I always go by standard.
Okay. All right. All right. So it's just the conversion there.
It's
okay,
just
gotcha.
the conversion. This one's really loose. So.
Dude, that one's about to fall out, man.
Yeah, this one's very, very loose. So, I mean, we're only like a 1/8 of a turn, but still. This little hose just right. Okay, that's real nice right there.
That's really good, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go to the exhaust now. So we just finished up with cylinder 4.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn the cam now another 90 degrees.
Okay.
And we're gonna move to cylinder 2.
Okay.
Perfect. That one also is very loose. Yeah, it's very loose.
Yeah, I can see that.
I adjust this still, it's a little loose, so I'm gonna go back and kind of correct it. I'm gonna run the tool so you guys can see here. That feels a lot better.
Yeah, looks right.
Feels really good. Okay. Now we're gonna grab 11 thousandths. Put this flashlight in here so you can see that thing is really on there.
Oh yeah, dude, that one's.
It's very tight. So we'll have to adjust that one for sure.
So every one of these has had to be adjusted.
And this one is loose.
That one's loose, okay.
So it just goes like, you definitely need to check all of them because that one could easily fall out.
But I think at this point in time, we've actually adjusted quite literally every single one.
Every single one, yeah.
Every single one needed to be adjusted. So this wasn't a check, this was a true, full-on valve clearance adjustment. All right, it's done, right?
Yep, we got the valve clearance finished.
Okay.
Now it's just a cleanup. There's always going to be some silicone left over at this point on the backside here.
Yep.
And then there's a little bit of a half moon on the back of the valve cover on both sides. And we will remove the silicone there. And then afterwards, I typically will wipe it down with a little alcohol just so then the Honda Bond adheres
Sticks to
really
it.
well.
Cool, dude. All right, we'll clean this up here. And Dave, then we're on to the next step. So I have a box over here that needs to be unboxed, I should say. So I'll show you guys what it picked up. So now it is the exciting part. I know probably most of you have been waiting for this, but if you've made it this far in the video, then hopefully this will be worth it. So we have our new valve cover here. Is there anything we have to do? Blow out compressed air, it's new, it's probably fine.
Nope, they are sealed up really well.
Okay.
I'll usually just give it a good look, make sure there's no defects or no contaminants on it.
Okay.
That looks really good. I'll usually just start towards the back.
Okay.
They have little dimples that'll index the gasket, and then just gonna lightly push it down into place. Then usually I'll kind of give this a tap on a nice flat surface. Okay. I'm just gonna push my, so I'm just gonna hold this just like that. Okay. And I'm just gonna give it a good tap. And that's just to set that in there and make sure that it doesn't fall out. Okay. Because we don't want to run into that issue.
It's gonna look sick, man. I'm excited. I'm pumped for this.
It's gonna look really nice. A little bit of alcohol. I use 90%. Okay. Might be a little excessive, but install a little Honda Bond. I got a little tool here used for dispensing.
It's a fancy tool, dude. I just squeeze that stuff out.
Yep. So I'm just gonna put a little dab right on the edge. A little difficult. You don't need a ton. A little drop there. And I'll always kind of swipe up like that, because if I'm going to have a little extra, I'd like it to be where there's probably more potential for a leak. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Moment of truth, dude. See if it fits, right? See if it turns my K20Z1 into a K20A Type R motor.
Now you kind of have to palm this.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's nice to have a little friendly help just to make sure nothing.
So you gotta make it around that right there. Yeah.
And then when you go to install this, you need to help the tube seals around the spark plug tube, or they will get pinched. So
massage it in.
Just massage it in with a little bit of downward pressure. And I've seen these get torn a lot. Sometimes people will just go and throw them on there and they just get torn. Give us a little bit of pressure downward.
So the best way to describe it is that it's going around that outer ring there. And is there anything to look for in terms of like a lip or anything like that?
If it was gonna tear, the rubber would be hanging over the edge of the metal tube.
Gotcha.
And it'll just cut right through it.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're gonna put the grommets on.
Dude, that looks pretty badass, I'm not gonna lie.
Just gonna lay that over just like so. Looks like it's gonna be a little bit more stubborn. There we go. If you've never done this before, it might be a good idea to use just a regular ratchet, just so you feel the nut go all the way down and it'll have like a solid bottom. Okay. Don't give it much more torque after that. So I'm just gonna get them started.
So now, is there any sequence to what you're doing it, or is it you're kind of just going crisscrossing?
This I'm just crisscrossing. I'm gonna start in the center here, hit the back and then the side, and then I'll come back to this guy. I'm not too worried about the torque on this one, but right when I hit the bottom, you heard that ratchet all of a sudden stop.
Slow down, yeah.
That's right where I want it, just right there.
Okay. Got it, perfect.
Okay guys, so we have new spark plugs. These are iridium plugs. These do not need or require any gap. Okay. If you check the gap, it is very easy to damage the spark plugs. Also, take note, you don't want to just drop it into the spark plug hole. So a lot of times I'll kind of just grab it with my magnetic socket and I'll just lower it down because it has to go down there a little ways, and I'll just get it started by hand. Okay.
And then is there any type of anti-seize that's needed or anything like that?
Some manufacturers will put it, suggest that you put anti-seize on. Mm-hmm. Hondas really don't have an issue. Okay. They don't have the oxidation issues that some manufacturers have. So as a practice, we don't.
Okay, okay. But some people might do as personal preference.
Yep. Well, so I'm just going to use my impact just to lightly run them down.
Okay.
So, and you can see it doesn't really take much effort to run these down. Okay. I'll grab my torque wrench.
So is there a torque spec on these?
These are, it's 18 foot-pounds.
Okay.
So I'm gonna...
Another expensive tool, all the snap-on things.
This is the money maker.
right, guys, so we got everything sewn back up, and this thing looks freaking mint, dude. Super badass. I am pumped on how this turned out, and I'm very glad that we got the adjustments done because it sounded like every single valve needed to be touched. And so I have the cover back on here. I don't know if this is something I'm going to keep long term because obviously I'm going to be upgrading the fuel rail, and then this right here, I got to do something about that coil pack cover. I mean, something. This one's all scratched up, and we'll figure out something fancy for it. But honestly, I kind of like the look without this, but I'll cross that bridge again once we get the fuel rail on. So the wheel is back on here. I'm just pumped, dude. The car's gonna be running better. It's gonna be much healthier. It looks way more badass when I pop the hood now. And we are another step closer to a cleaner Acura RSX Type S. All right, guys, so that is going to be a wrap for today. Cody, you're a beast, dude. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciated being able to work on your car. I haven't worked on one of these in a hot minute.
All right.
So
yeah,
it's a nice change of pace going from 2022s to
the golden era, right?
Golden era. Almost vintage.
Almost vintage at this point. One thing I will say though, if you guys don't feel comfortable doing this yourself, if you're not good with a feeler gauge or you don't feel confident in doing this, then find a Honda technician.
Yeah, it's very crucial to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
You're not going to know it's wrong until it's just wrong.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And once you throw everything together, it could be a headache. So if you lack confidence, it's not something just to start out with without guidance or assistance.
Yeah.
And if you're uncomfortable, it's probably best to have a certified technician or someone with experience be able to do that for you.
Yeah. Cody, thank you again so much. Hopefully we'll be back here at Larry Miller Honda at some point. There is a big show coming up this summer. We'll be back here for sure. But in the meantime, if we find any other cool projects, we'll definitely be bringing the car back here for maybe something I don't specialize in or maybe something I don't feel confident in. But Cody is the alignment master here in town. He is the #1 alignment guy. So not only is he a master tech for Honda, but quite literally every person I know that has a race car or a car that is worth a decent amount of money will take their car to Cody because he gets it. So I'm sure we'll be back here for at least an alignment or other types of suspension goodies. But I just wanted to make this video today, introduce you guys to Cody. He's awesome. And then bring you guys around for something different, a change of pace outside of my garage, which is quite roomy in here, right?
Oh yeah, it's big.
Yeah, so right on, guys. I'm gonna leave you with some after shots here of the valve cover. It looks absolutely amazing. I'm excited to jump in the car and go rip it home. So as usual, if you guys enjoy the Honda content and wanna see more of it, please make sure to give me a big thumbs up. Subscribe down below for more. I'll catch you guys in the next one. It's ALLDAYANTHONY. Peace.